Pharmacology. Guys, that class was not my favorite. Actually, it was probably my least favorite class in both nursing and NP school. And that super bums me out because so much of being a nurse and being an NP is understanding and interacting with medication. But I found the class to be needlessly overwhelming and honestly ridiculous, but you really aren't here to listen to me rant about that. Let's talk a little bit about how you can improve your comprehension and your grades while taking pharmacology as either a nurse or a nurse practitioner student. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Liz. I'm a family nurse practitioner, and today I'm gonna give you my tips and tricks for surviving pharmacology. That way you can make it through the semester and then forget everything you ever learned in this class, because let's be honest, you're gonna use Hippocrates to do everything anyways. Just kidding, but really. All right. So first, I just wanted to talk about the class in general and kind of what to expect. This class is pretty much just a lot of cold, hard fact memorization. It's all about learning what medications are in what classes, what the side effects are, how they interact with each other and the body, and when to use them. And the biggest thing to understand with pharm is the focus here is obviously, yes, like how to use them, what to do with them, but safety. That, I feel like in nursing and NP school, is always the #1 thing. How do you utilize these medications and monitor them safely? So when you're studying, keep that in the back of your mind, because you know that's in the back of your teacher's mind, so it's gonna end up on your test. And practically speaking, I mean, if that's the one thing you take away from the course are the safety features, that's awesome, because then when you're in the field and you go to prescribe something, a little bell's gonna go off in the back of your head being like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And even if you don't remember exactly what that bad idea is, it'll kind of prompt you to go look it up, and that could potentially be super helpful. So in terms of the class, the biggest challenges and the majority of your grade are probably going to be tests and quizzes. There will also likely be some discussion boards, maybe some busy work assignments that kind of help you understand how to use the medications in real life. They'll give you case studies or something like that where you have to apply the knowledge that you gained from your fact memorization. But fortunately, at least in my program and a lot of other ones I've heard about, the discussion board, the busy work, isn't nearly as heavy in this class as it is for a class like Patho, which is super duper content and busy work heavy. All right, let's talk about my study strategy for pharm, which was honestly pretty simple. The very first thing I want you to do with everything you encounter with pharm is look for patterns. Look for prefixes, so the beginning of the word, or suffixes, the end of the word, and see if they are the same as anything else, because medicines are always in families. At least they usually are. And medications in families act the same way. They have a lot of the same drug interactions. They react with allergies kind of the same way. They generally do the same thing, and they're gonna have the same side effect profile-ish. And it's going to be a lot more manageable to memorize family information rather than the thousands of drugs that they're gonna throw at you this semester. So for example, beta blockers end in OLOL. ACE inhibitors end in PRIL. And antifungals end in ZOL. And guys, there are a ton more. And that's with the generic name, just so you know. When you're looking at these, you're gonna wanna memorize, usually for the exam, the generic name, not the brand name, because the brand name's gonna change. Your teacher wants to make sure that you know the generic name for the most part. So when I studied, I really just studied the generic name and kind of didn't pay attention to the brand name, because if they do give it to you on the exam, they should give you both, just in case. But as long as you know the generic name, it's gonna be better down the road for prescribing, and that's more commonly used in medical literature and probably on your test too. And all I mean by that is memorizing acetaminophen instead of Tylenol. So acetaminophen is the generic name and Tylenol is the brand name. So once you've gone and you've identified medications that, ooh, these all end in the same thing, and why yes indeed they are all statins, you're gonna take that little family of drugs and memorize facts about that whole family. Because like I said, most of the information you're gonna learn is gonna apply to the entire family. And then once you've gotten the information about the whole group down, you can go and you can memorize little details about individual medications in the family. But having a grasp of the whole medication family initially, I think, is a really good foundation before you get super nitpicky. Otherwise, you're just gonna be real overwhelmed. And it's better to know 90% of the information about a whole group and then leave the last 10% off or whatever, than to not be able to grasp a whole chunk of medicine that's out there. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I hope so. And then in terms of memorization with these groups, you're gonna find your own weird, sleep-deprived, super caffeinated way of remembering these. Like, you know how you remember things weirdly when you're under stress and you're super tired and you've on your 5th cup of coffee, and for some reason, like, you're like, okay, amlodipine is a calcium channel blocker. Let's remember pines, like a pine tree being really dense and hard, and calcium as in your bones, they make your bones hard. So calcium channel blockers are like pine trees, which is why it ends in pine. I'm telling you guys, that's how my brain worked. That's how I remembered them. But so you're gonna find your own way to remember all of those suffixes and prefixes to remember your families. And that, if you take anything away from this video, is my #1 tip for how to survive in pharmacology. So there you go. #1, just clump as much information together as you can so you're only memorizing stuff once instead of 6 times for all the different meds in the family. Look at the big picture rather than approaching it with the tiny details because, there's a lot of medications out there and it's just not feasible to remember absolutely all of them. So in terms of where to go to understand the information, obviously your teachers are probably going to provide you with like lecture or show you, go read this from Pharmacist Letter, or maybe you have a textbook for pharm. That can be your primary resource. But the second thing that I used, honestly, probably just as much as my primary lecture was Picmonic. So if you've never heard of Picmonic, it's this app. It uses recurrent characters and storylines to kind of tell you stories about how different topics in healthcare work. And for pharmacology and things where it's just like straight memorization, I would not have survived pharm without it because it really focuses on, it teaches you about the med and it gives you weird stories to help you remember the contraindications and what it's actually used for, what happens when it goes through the cytochrome P450 enzyme system, all of that, and it incorporates all of that and it helped me remember, which, I was so skeptical, but it ended up working. So if you want to try Picmonic, you get 1 free module a day and it has all the medicines I had in pharm. And it listed them by class. So if you were like, ooh, I need to work on, my fluoroquinolones, you can go in and just look at those, or you can look at all these antibiotics, whatever you need to do. It saved my butt because there's no way I would have remembered all of the, weird intricacies of all the medications. Picmonic gives you 1 free module, I think a day, that you can go in, you can do the quiz at the end, or you can pay for a couple months, a year, however long you think you're gonna need it. So I ended up buying it because I really wanted to be able to do multiple modules in a day. And you can tell it to ask you questions where it goes back and it's I wanna review this really quick, and it'll ask you questions and it remembers what you don't know, so it kind of builds on that. So I thought that was super insanely helpful. If that ends up being something you're interested in, I have a coupon code down in the description below. You get 20% off if you use my code. So go check that out. I really couldn't have lived without that because I'm a very visual and auditory learner, and there was no way I was gonna learn, what first, second, and third generation cephalosporins were and what they did if I didn't have a little bit of help behind the scenes. So that's what I used. It was super helpful. So go check it out, see if it'll be helpful for you too. The third thing that I would recommend for studying pharm would be to go and find a review book for whatever you're in. Really, whatever boards you guys are planning on taking, there's a review book for it. And I thought going through those questions based on the topic, because your modules are gonna be set up in hypertension. Great, go read the hypertension module and do some questions. And that'll give you a feel for how the questions are going to be presented on your exam because it gives you real world application. It's not gonna say, what are the 4 things that you should not take this medication with? It's going to give you a real patient and it's going to give you a case scenario, and it kind of helps get your critical thinking going rather than just being a fact regurgitating machine. And another thing that's really helpful with pharm, because it's straight memorization, are things like flashcards. So you can obviously write your own, or you can go on Quizlet. I know some people have already uploaded to Quizlet and you can just search and use their quizzes, which is awesome. You can make your own flashcards on Quizlet, but whatever studying method, just have it be one where it's straight memorization. Use your study styles that maybe you used in anatomy and physiology. What worked for you back then when you just had to memorize cold hard facts? Bring that back and apply that to this class. And the whole time you're studying, remember, just really focus on safety. If you're going through and reading something and anytime you see do not in capitals or something absolute contraindication, you can bet that that is going to be on your exam. If they stress it, if they ever say it more than once, if your teacher mentions it and you read it in the book, that's something, that's a safety thing that you're probably gonna wanna look at. Ooh, patient comes in, they're diabetic. Are you gonna put them on metformin when their eGFR is 30? No, you're not, friend. No, you're not. They're gonna either need insulin or they probably need a lot more help than just insulin. Things like that, where it's stressed to you multiple times. It's a safety issue, because remember, this exam and school is really all about safety, safety, safety. Focus on those things and you'll be great. And finally, just give yourself plenty of time. This class, as with most classes in nursing and NP school, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I learned this the hard way. I procrastinated through honestly most of nursing school. And when I got to NP school, it was like a slap in the face because there is so much information. You cannot just wait until the night before the exam. It's not possible anymore. Kind of attack it a little bit at a day. I found that honestly reviewing every day, I would do my quizzes in Picmonic, however many it recommended me to do. I would read through a little bit of my notes every day, anything to kind of give me a refresher. and you absorb it more than you really think you will. But start early, guys. Do not wait until the last minute. It's just too much information to do all at once. And just as a little side note here, do not be discouraged if you feel like you can't memorize it all, because no one can memorize all of pharmacology and remember it forever. And in the real world, you're gonna have apps, you're gonna have reference books that are going to help you remember all this information. Your computer is gonna scream at you if you try to prescribe these two, like, you know, two conflicting medications together, or if they have an allergy and they think there might be a cross sensitivity, it's gonna warn you. Obviously, it's very, very important to learn this stuff and have it in the back of your mind, but in the real world, I mean, you're gonna go to Hippocrates, you're gonna type out all your meds, it's gonna spit out an interaction for you or what it thinks you should prescribe to help you get there. You're not gonna be on your own in the real world. This class made me feel so dumb and just like, I can never do this, you know, like there's no way I can remember all of this. And one of the physicians I was working with at the time, because I was like in a panic one day, I was like, there are so many medicines and like there's just no way I'm going to remember them all and I don't want to kill someone. And he just sat me down. He was like, look, I've been practicing for 40 something years. He was like, I don't know all the medicines. He's like, when you get into practice, I want you to learn 1 or 2 medicines you use to treat these common problems. And then you know everything about those 2. You know what they interact with, what their side effects are, everything about these drugs. And then the rest, he's like, you're gonna look up when you need to look them up. And I thought that was such a good point. Like, have a couple in your back pocket for pretty much like, you know, most things that you're gonna see, which narrows it down to like, you really know a lot about 20 to 25 drugs, which for the real world, like that's totally doable, probably even more realistically. But that just put me at such ease. So I just wanna share that with you guys, that this class is challenging and it's overwhelming, but if you are not retaining everything, that doesn't mean you're gonna be a bad provider. It doesn't mean you're gonna be a bad nurse. It just means that you have a normal human brain that physically cannot remember thousands of different medications and facts. It was just not feasible. So you're normal, just like everyone else. It's okay, get through the class. You are going to do just fine. Get through it, and when you forget everything, don't feel dumb. Just be like, yeah, okay, I survived that. Check, moving on. So there you have it. Those are my tips for pharmacology. There is a lot of information out there. Just remember, tackle this thing slowly. Don't overwhelm yourself by looking at the whole picture. And pretty soon you're gonna be amazed at how much you know. And the next time someone's like, how does Advil work? You're gonna go on some real impressive tangent about just exactly how Advil works. And then you'll be like, ah, pat myself on the back. I didn't even know I knew all that. Because you're gonna learn more than you think you do. It's just you just have to be patient with yourself and approach it one day at a time. Life motto here, one day at a time. All right, so that wraps up that. Again, if you guys are new here, I'm Liz. I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I make videos just like this one once a week and a weekly vlog documenting my career journey as a family nurse practitioner. So if that's something that sounds fun to you, consider subscribing below and going over to Instagram where I document case studies and all that good stuff throughout the week. Everyone else, welcome back. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me during today's video. Hopefully it was helpful for you. We always have question of the day, and today that is, what is your favorite class you've ever taken? Doesn't have to be nursing, doesn't have to be whatever, just what's your favorite class you've ever taken? Mine was in NP school when we finally got to do like chronic and acute disease management. We had like 2 of those classes, but the first one, I was like, yes, like this is what I actually want to do. And it was just so cool to be finally learning something that I wanted to know. You know, I was like hungry for more information. I didn't know it and I wanted to know it, and they gave it to me, and it was just really cool, and it kind of cemented like, this is what I want to do forever. So cool. I'm super excited to hear what you guys loved in school, whatever it may be. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.